What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian podcast feed. I am your host, Jacob Hollabaugh, born again Survivor superfan, and joining me as he does every week that my schedule allows for, because sorry, we missed last week. My fault, is the one and only Tony Lance. Tony, how we doing this week?
Not too bad at all. I am happy to be back talking Survivor. Happy to be done my final assignment for my course, so I don't have to do anything until January.
Hell yeah. That's a full month off. You gotta love that.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
yes, as referenced, we were not here last week for episode 9. I take full responsibility for that. I don't know if we promised we'd be here every week. I probably said that more times than I should have, given that with our schedules, it was bound to happen. And, over a holiday and a bunch of other stuff, sickness, work, and whatnot, it did not happen. But we're back today for episode number 10. We will briefly at the top of the podcast touch on one or two just quick things from episode 9. Both episodes were very good, thankfully for us. And it was, if there was one to miss, episode 9 was kind of the one to miss, given that a lot of the storylines carried over into episode 10 and
True.
they feel a bit like a tandem. So I'm sad that we missed one, but it turned out to kind of be the best case one probably to miss of all of them. So that's the agenda for this evening. Quickly before we begin, though, program reminders. BFank Challenge World rolls on to episode whatever they're on, 10, 9 or 10 of, I guess, what is going to be a 22 episode season.
Jeez.
I am now hearing or seeing in different places. So screw the holidays, says MTV in the challenge, going right on through. So that'll be coming every Wednesday night. Survivor, we will, fingers crossed, be back every week the rest of this season, which isn't that many episodes left. How many episodes are in a Survivor season? Like 12, right?
12 or 13, it depends, but I mean, the final 5 is normally the finale.
Yeah, and we've got 7 left after this episode. So 7, 6, and then 5. Yeah, so 3 more weeks, more than likely. Yeah. So we will be back each and every one of those to cover that sometime between Friday and Monday night. Tony, anything going down on Challenge Fandom that we missed in the last week and a half or so since we last spoke, or coming up exciting?
Yeah, actually. We are now officially a much bigger host crew.
Oh my goodness.
We have 2 new hosts.
I didn't even see this.
Yeah, so we have Alexis, who you might remember from she's guested a couple of times.
Yep.
We have now brought her on as a full-time host. And then Katie, who I had previously said was Melissa. She is now one of our other permanent hosts. So now we actually have 3 women on our podcast, which is fantastic. So Karina doesn't have to deal with all of us by herself. And we had our first episode. Corey is still away, but we had our very first episode with a 6-person podcast. I had to do math really quick.
Yeah.
You
got a full tribe.
I just glazed over. We had a whole starting tribe of 6, 3 and 3. And it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. It's really cool to have like a big crew and get all those different insights, because I mean, everybody comes at the challenge from a different perspective and different background. So yeah, I'm super stoked on it. I think that episode will be out either today or tomorrow. And then I don't think we have any interviews coming up yet. And it's just been like finding our groove with a 6-person crew. And we seem to find it pretty quick.
Yeah, love that. Well, we officially now, congrats and awesome for those 2 joining. Love that. Yeah. Can't wait to listen in. We now, between us, have both ends of the spectrum covered. We got a solo show and we got a 6-person crew. So whatever you're looking for. And then here for Survivor, we've got your standard 2-person crew. So we've got it all covered around these parts. So definitely, as always, if you, for some reason, are not already following Challenge Fandom and you watch the challenge, or if you just want to be nice, if you're only a Survivor person, but you just want to be nice, you can still go hit follow, download all the stuff. That really helps. Everything will be in the show notes below. With that, Tony, let's dive in then to Survivor 45, briefly episode 9, and then into episode number 10. All right, starting with episode number 9, and quickly, I did not mention in the little intro there, but we do have a third co-host today. Speaking of all
Yes.
new co-hosts, we do have my dog Bodie in the room, and he's probably going to make a lot of noise. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you continually see me looking all around, or maybe a little tail fly up in the background, that's what that is. His squeaky toys are kind of loud, so if you hear that too, I'm probably not going to take the time to try to edit that out after the fact. So he's here. If he has a strong opinion about anyone, I will let you know. I'll let him get on the microphone. I doubt it, though. He usually falls asleep before I get to Survivor. So episode 9, quickly, the episode that we missed. Two main things to hit on really quickly, and then we'll get to the most recent episode. The first thing being, while I know, and probably anyone that's listened to us talk all season probably can guess what our opinions are to some degree, I'm interested to see if they're in line with what they've kind of been throughout the season. How did you feel about the immunity challenge and the structure of last week's episode being split yourself into 3 teams of 3, and then the challenge ending up being 3 people will, a team challenge until there's 1 team left, and then an endurance challenge between those 3, all of them getting the reward, only one of them getting immunity. How did you feel about the overall structure?
I hated it.
Okay, that's in line with how you felt all season. You're consistent. Okay,
Yep.
explain.
I don't like people's votes being taken. I think I understand the need to like change the game, keep things interesting, yada yada yada. However, this cast is interesting. Like they are playing really hard and they're really good players. So if you if you give all of these players their ability to vote, especially at 9, because 9 is traditionally like a big vote because it's when you start to get really down to it. So to take 3 people's votes away at random, basically, because you don't necessarily know the dynamic of that group of 3, it screws up everything. Like it screws up plans, and I understand the need to scramble, and I understand what they were trying to do, but I really hate that, especially because they didn't do anything wrong. That's my problem. Like that's my big problem with this one is they did not do anything wrong. It wasn't like they took a beware advantage. It wasn't like they took a shot at a challenge on like Shipwheel Island and it didn't work out for them. They just were a group of 3 that didn't find ropes as quickly as the other 2 groups of 3. And I don't think they should be penalized for that. Like maybe then if you really want to take something away, maybe you don't get to participate in the immunity challenge, right? Like maybe that's what happens. You don't lose your vote, but you don't get a shot at immunity because that's still dire. That could still sink your game, but at least you still have your vote and at least you can still be a contributing member to your alliance. Because if you lose your vote, you're not really any use to your alliance during that vote.
Yeah, it's really a timing thing. I wouldn't, if you just explain this to me in advance of the season, I would have been like, this one doesn't break any of my rules. I don't love the losing the vote either. I don't know which way you could have differently to do it to make each of the 3 teams like getting to the 3 stages. Maybe you just don't get any food if you're the first team out, and then the second group gets a little food and the final group gets all the food, and then one gets immunity. I don't know, but I wouldn't have been that upset with this structure because there was only one winner in the end, and it's kind of fun that like team picking without knowing what teams you're picking is kind of interesting to me. If in a vacuum, I'm like good with it. It's just I know they do so much planning that usually is such an asset to the show of how well they think through this all beforehand. But this is one moment where I wish they would have read the exact situation they had and said, hey, this was a great idea that we land out, but we've got to cut it because we've got this strong 4, and this narrative that we're building is like, there's this 4, but there's still a majority on the other side if they could get together, and they can't. That other side's dysfunctional, and that's kind of this interesting dynamic that's playing out. Is like the Reba 4 kept all this control because the other group was so dysfunctional that they could never actually trust each other to rally. And this was the last chance they really had to do that. And at 9 people with 5 on one side, and 2 of them end up losing their votes. And then one of them, the one person that wins their vote back, happens to be the one member of Reba that also has 2 idols already. And it's like, oh, great. Of course, Austin did, like, no problem. So I just think it was bad timing. I didn't hate on its own the structure of the idea. I just wish they would
No.
have, if it happened an episode earlier or later, I would have felt way differently. I just think timing wise, it didn't help. And that obviously, you know, that storyline is one of the ones we'll talk about here in a second with episode 10. Then that continues to play out of Reba 4 now versus 4 in episode 10 that still can't get their shit together to just do anything to break up that 4. Speaking of that 4, though, the one other thing I wanted to mention from episode 9 is that as the Reba 4 dominate and continue to have control of the game, it's just slow build of, well, at some point they're obviously not, you know, they're going to have to vote one of themselves out. You know, maybe they have the courage to do what no one else would do and go to the final 4 together and figure it out then. Probably not. But as far as episode 9 went, D was the one that won essentially the battle of who gets to make the choice for the Reba 4. She wants Kendra, Julie wants Jake. The group, Austin and Drew, are kind of like, I don't really, you haven't said Emily in this, so that's fine. We're secretly kind of working with her, so we don't care. And D won out in the end when sending Kendra home and getting everyone to be,
for the same reason. They like, because Julie wants Jake out because Jake said her name.
Yeah, it's both just like we get to pick, and you know, if our group's picking, he voted for me, he voted for me, and it's just like little spite, which it must be a great feeling in Survivor to be like, we're so safe that even at 9 people left, we can be like, I've received 1 vote on this island, and that mother effer is going home right now. How are they still here? They voted for me. It's like, geez, you normally aren't in such a cushy position that you can have that level of spite to just be like, have to go. You voted for me like 3 weeks ago and it didn't matter, but you still have to go.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like it's so intense to look at this group of 4 that is able to just kind of ride it through. And it happens more often than not, just because people invariably look at everybody else in their tight alliance and they're like, oh, I need to cut somebody while I have the numbers to do it. And they're running out of time to have the numbers to do it. Mm-hmm. So whether they intentionally go as a foursome to the end and then figure out who wins immunity, who does fire, and who sits at final, or they just don't have the extra bodies to make anything happen within the next couple of votes, they're going to end up with final 4.
Yeah, one way or the other. And they stay in control. And that's episode 9. Basically, Kendra goes home. She's very upset about it. Last thing I'll say is I did enjoy. Kendra grew on me as someone who I didn't go into the season expecting to like. And then through the first couple episodes was like, fine, good person. Nothing bad about her as a person, but didn't vibe with her. I vibed with her more near the end. And I definitely loved that she gets voted out, doesn't say a damn word to anyone, just icy stare, pissed off, and just walks up to Jeff, lets him stuff it, and walks off. Doesn't say one word, doesn't say I love you, nothing. It's just like, this is bullshit. I'm out of here. These people made a bad decision. I shouldn't have been the one voted out. So shout out to Kendra for that. And that's your episode 9 recap. Nailed it. Wow. Our podcast could be 10 minutes every week.
Boom.
We just kept our mouths shut, but it won't be. It's going to be much longer than that, because now we're going to actually talk about this week's episode number 10. Alrighty, so to kick off episode number 10, then we will go chronological as we always do here and hit the, kind of the main point or two of each section of the show. So night 17, day 18, which it is crazy that we said in the opening, there's only 3 episodes of this left. And it's, I know we're on the 5th season of this short 26-day thing now, but it still is very striking when you're like, oh, day 18, wait, we're almost done. Like, oh my gosh.
Home stretch.
Yeah, they're starting to get a lot of food and rewards and stuff. Like they're okay. Wow. Okay, here we are. So the main thing to talk about from the opening segment is Bruce, in Bruce's plan that he hatches, and we'll probably reference it throughout the episode, but it comes to fruition here at the beginning. His plan is that he has come up with the idea to lie to everyone and say, Kelly left with my idol. I was worried about the knowledge is power and everyone knowing that I had an idol and maybe wanting to get me out. And so I gave it to Kelly to hold on to, and then she walked out with it on its own, on its face. Fantastic lie. Really good lie. Totally believable. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. The thing that did not make sense was him deciding the first person I'm going to tell is Katurah, which actually does make sense. They find that they have this nice little moment on the beach where they're like, can you believe like we obviously both know we don't like each other, but here we are. We're going to work together. This is so good. And then Bruce is like, you know what? I should practice my lying. I shouldn't tell her the plan. I should reveal my plan by first lying to her and then saying, oops, just kidding. How is my acting? And that's his downfall. He has this great plan, what I think is a great plan. You tell me if you agree, but he has what I think is a great plan that will work. And as we see later in the episode, everyone else believes it until they're told that that's complete bullshit. But he doesn't just float this as an idea to Katurah. He lies to her and then says, just kidding. How was my acting? And that's why he eventually goes home.
Yeah. So smarter plan if you float that out when Kelly goes home. Like when you go back to camp, rather than not telling anybody anything for another whole vote and then saying, hey, by the way, Kelly actually left with my idol. And like,
I don't know if he felt he could easily have covered that up by being like, yeah, like me having an idol felt like during the Kendra vote, like the only reason that anyone was even thinking about voting for someone else. And then once I won immunity, it was just, keep my info to myself, what's the matter? And now I feel like I'm going to get voted for no matter what. And I don't actually have an idol. So like, I think he could have pulled it off.
He could have, but like that to me was the piece that was missing from his story, was when he was talking to either Katurah or to Jake, he could have said like, I didn't tell you guys this because I had immunity, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't have my idol anymore. And it could have been a part of like the full story that we just didn't get because of editing. But like, I think that for me was the piece where I was like, you need to explain why you didn't tell anybody in your super tight alliance that you didn't have your idol. So that they can potentially protect you or like work around you. But the thing that killed me was when he did his confessional and said that he told Jake so that it could spread out through a camp, because Jake is clearly the one who's going to be leaking the information.
Who's like, any info I get, everyone gets, because I'm on the bottom and I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. And then I looked at Sarah and I was like, Katurah is going to be the one that tells anybody anything about Bruce before Jake does, which is true. So like, but then the way that it was framed is, even if Katurah is the one that tells everybody, Bruce has already set it up in his mind that Jake's going to be the one to tell people. So even if Katurah does, he's still blaming Jake for it because he's the one who he planted the information to leak out. So it's a good plan, and like clearly it worked until it didn't, and it was really Bruce's only move, and he needed to start that story before they played for immunity, because if he starts it after, then it's obviously just, I didn't win immunity, I have to tell people that I don't have my idol. But
yeah, I'm with you. I just think it was a perfect lie and a perfect idea of a lie that is convincing, that someone would believe and would make sense, and would then also be able to have the effect of him being, if it all worked, his whole goal is then we go to tribal council and people vote for me and I pull out the idol, and then it only takes 2 or 3 of us to actually vote for the person and get someone out. So I think it would have worked. I think it just don't tell Katurah in this works. Just have at this point the fact that after all of this he decided, you know what, my number one, I have been told after we voted her out, was definitely wanted me out. Katurah has openly hated me the whole time. I'm working with no one. He should be like, maybe Emily is the one person who, Emily is desperate, is the only person this whole episode that's like, there's 4 of us, there's 4 of them, we should do this. But she literally says in the confessional, I think near the opening here, like, I so desperately want Jake, Katurah, and Bruce and I to work together and we could get one of them out, but those 3 just can't do it. And I can't trust them to do it. And so I have no other choice but to kind of still be over here. And it's just like, that's the story of the Bello tribe of this season, basically, is just they couldn't get on the same page. So this will obviously unfold throughout the episode. So let's move then to the reward challenge. So the reward challenge comes, and it's, as we referenced earlier, we are later in the game than it still feels like we would be, but we are late enough in the game that the biggest reward challenge of the season is here. They don't say it up front, but I definitely, when it was just a reward challenge at this point, I was like, I don't think there's there's going to be another reward only challenge.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whatever family element, maybe if it's still just letters, and maybe if someone's there, whatever, is going to be a reward only challenge. So I had a feeling it was going to be this one. Emily wins, which is a big moment for her. Obviously,
Yes.
the full end of the arc would be winning the whole season. But as far as where she and her Lulu tribe members started the season, to have one of them still in the game and winning a challenge on day 18 is not something we would have seen coming in the first episode.
No.
She wins. It's very fun. It's very exciting. And then she gets the, always horrible choice, and kind of the reason you maybe don't want to win,
Yes.
which is now I have to pick people to go with me to the sanctuary for a real meal. She eventually picks the 3 other women. Half of the tribe gets to go. They get actual food, which is the other thing we didn't say about episode 9. The reward for that one was like 1 turkey with no silverware or anything.
Yeah.
Still amazing. The number
chicken.
1 thing you want, but like then this one is like, here's a full meal. They still don't have silverware, which is kind of interesting. They're eating with their hands most of the time. Maybe that's just how they want to eat. I don't know. But the most important part is then they're filled in. You're going to get the letters from home. So what do you think about Emily's picks from a strategy standpoint? Take it any way you want to go.
Yeah. So I actually had a question for you as well. So I will kind of I'll give you my take on it. I think that Emily knows that Julie and Dee are tight, right? Like they're pretty much unbreakable at this point. As far as before they attack each other, they're not going to like go together against Drew and Austin, at least not right now. So I think that the people that she chose was more to build those bonds for potential jury members than it was necessarily to build bonds, to build an alliance, to move forward in the game. I think that she's still, while still trying to figure out where she sits, I think she thinks that she can still get in with Austin and Drew in a way that will allow her to be somebody to help them vote out the other 2. So she doesn't necessarily want to work with Dee and Julie, because I think that she sees Dee as like her main competition. But I think that this is her attempt to kind of gain jury votes, build those relationships and everything else. And I actually saw Kelly did her Ponderosa video. So like the day after she went to Ponderosa, she gave Emily full credit for that move of her being taken out. And she also said that Emily is her winner pick.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm thinking that we're maybe not seeing just how social of a game that Emily is playing now, and just how in control, while being not in control, she actually is. So I definitely think that was to build those relationships more than to build an alliance.
Definitely very, very interesting to find out Kelly said that. Where do you watch those videos, by the way?
It was on Instagram. I think I might have sent it to you, but I sent it to you on my way down the stairs to record. So I sent it to you in the period of time that you would have no way to watch it. But yeah, it's on.
They put a lot of stuff out through Entertainment Tonight.
Entertainment Weekly.
Entertainment Weekly.
Dalton Ross, yeah.
Yeah. So probably a lot of stuff there as well, because they had Entertainment Weekly always has like the bonus scene or whatever, and the last couple have been like, these are pointless. There's a reason they hit the cutting room floor. I guess the 90 minutes now they're hitting like, we actually are showing you everything that kind of matters. But yeah, I agree that Emily, there might be more of a social game there than we've even been seeing. She's definitely been getting been one of the stars because of just the situations that her team and then her as an individual found herself in. My only question on, I think it's ultimately like, it's good to have a reason for who you pick. And, doing the all women thing is like a solid reason. I personally think that she maybe could have done something a little different strategically. And if it wouldn't have been for like, at this point, she doesn't know that Katurah is like going to throw Bruce under the bus.
Yeah.
I would have found it fascinating if she would have picked Katurah, Bruce, and Jake, and been like, and gotten there and just made it very clear and obvious, like, guys, if this is going to happen, they know that that's what we're going to talk about. We know that's what we're going to talk about. But like, if it's going to happen, it has to happen now. Let's all have this meal and try to figure this out. Would that have worked? Probably not, but would have been interesting. The only other thing the whole time I was thinking, because sometimes Jeff is willing to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
If Emily would have given up her spot, people have done that before, maybe not for this, but have offered like, will you let multiple more people go if I give up my spot? I wonder how many people Jeff would have let go. I wonder if he would have let everyone.
I doubt it.
He probably says no, but if I don't know.
Maybe if they gave up their vote.
I don't know why I was like immediately went to the idea of like Emily should ask, if I don't go, can everyone else go, just to see what Jeff says, which I think he would have said, I'll let one extra person go and 5 instead of 4, whatever. And then it would have been like, can she get someone to say like, I'll also sit out and try to take this like credit that you're trying to get of like giving more people this reward. But ultimately that would be silly. And it would have taken away the Emily wine glass in hand confessional that is now an iconic meme forever. So, who would have wanted that? So the women head to the sanctuary. The boys head back to the beach, and they both have a great time, as we'll talk about now. Do. Starting with the sanctuary before we get to boys' night. At sanctuary, Katurah just immediately throws Bruce under the bus, like immediately. It takes no time at all. And is his lie, the idol thing, even mentioned? And then she says, oh, that's fake. Or does she come out right away and just say, she just comes out and says, Bruce is going to try to lie to you about X, right? And Emily's face is like, what the F are you doing here? Like, what's going on?
Right. Yeah, it's I don't know that it was in the edit. I don't know that we got any like provocation of that fact coming out, because it's not like they even went to the immunity challenge yet and Bruce didn't win. They haven't even done that yet. So there's no need to talk about it yet, because it's like Caleb, it's like Kelly. If they don't win immunity, then everyone's voting for them. Mm-hmm. So I guess she was sort of saying, if he doesn't win, he's going to try to sell this story. So don't let that fool you, because this could be the only opportunity that she gets to talk to Dee and Julie without raising suspicion from Bruce, who seems to like to know where everyone is going at all times. I agree with you. It seemed very out of left field, and I'm sort of talking myself into it now by saying like that's the opportunity to have that conversation. But
if I want, and I don't want to, because I think this is just we'll talk in worse strategy, but I think Katurah's it's an edit, and maybe they just decided the edit it's gonna be really fun to do this like rivalry between Katurah and Bruce. But her seemingly, as far as we can tell, like only goal in this game just to get Bruce out isn't a great strategy to me, and I think she should have held on to this info. But as you said, that I will at least give it's going to be way better if she tells them all now before they've even been lied to, and be like, be on the lookout, act like you believe it, the whole thing, versus finding out later, he told you that lie, it's a lie, and then them being like, who's actually lying to me?
Right.
Finding out up front, they're like, oh, you're telling me about this, like you're telling me the truth if you're telling me about a plan that hasn't happened yet, and then I see that plan happen, I now know who's telling the truth. So there is some credence to it, more than I also thought going into actually having this conversation, but I still don't love the strategy. I do love, though, that we do finally get the first non-Bruce related Katurah content. We get a little bit of her backstory as she gets the letter from her mother, who we find out she had separated ties with, and seemed to be she separated ties with her mother. As far as who made that decision to do so. And that's kind of all we don't find out like anything else beyond that, really, but that's obviously a massive, whatever led to it is a massive life decision, and probably had a lot of consequential actions and experiences in your life that lead up to making a decision like that, and then make it all the more powerful or emotional when you then get a letter from her, and I think she does read it. That was the only part I was kind of
Yeah.
confused by, was like at first when she's, kind of broke down and told everyone what was going on, I was like, did you just see that you had a letter from your mom? Have you read it yet? And then like, are you going to read it? So I was a little confused, but I believe she does actually read
Yeah,
it,
because
right?
she referenced like what was said in it, I
Okay. Yeah.
believe, like in regards to the fact that no matter what our relationship is now, like you're still my daughter. And
Hmm.
so I think what she was conflicted about was conflicted on what to do with the emotion that she got as a result of reading it, more
Hmm.
so than like, do I read this letter? Um, but I really like, to me, the loved one's letter, like this particular one, was probably one of my favorites, like that I felt the most connected to, despite having not really having the same lived experiences of any of the four.
Hmm.
But to get really into each one of their stories and to see what those letters meant to each individual person, and like to have Dee reading hers and having the voiceover and like having the subtitles, and like to have Julie, who we know like went through a divorce and everything like that, and Emily, where she's got like big life stuff going on at home that she's not actually present for. Um, so it's all really interesting personal information, and like getting to see these people beyond just the game that they're playing. And I really like that. I think it's the first time that I've really felt that strong of a connection to the loved one letters.
Hmm. Yeah. They're cool every time. Like, and obviously you could tell how I can put myself in their shoes as far as like getting a letter from like my wife or someone in that situation
Yeah.
would obviously be, I would be extraordinarily overwhelmed with emotion the way they are and everyone is in this situation. But they've also never really done it for me. As you know, I know there's a big segment of the audience that definitely gets teary-eyed over it as well, and is one of the things they're looking for out of Survivor, and it has never hit me. And this one did a little more, but I think it had as much to do with the fact of like, oh, I'm finally getting to know something about Katurah. Like, as much time as we've spent with all of these four, but
Yeah.
finally getting to get a little bit more. Or the nice reminder, the Julie reminder was, because I had
Mm.
forgotten, and that was like all in her bio. We talked about it in the preseason of, basically started life number 2 at like 40, got divorced, completely changed careers, single mom, and now 10 years later has built a really successful brand new life. Like, that's really cool and
Yeah.
interesting, and I had totally forgotten that any of that was a thing. And then nice reminder of that. Did you by chance, speaking of earlier things that we find out after the fact, did you see Austin's one of his letters from home that he shared afterwards? Because they all
No,
get
I
theirs after
didn't.
they leave the home.
Yeah.
Austin's brother wrote him a letter that I don't have it in front of me. It was very short. It was like 100 words or something, like a short paragraph and a half.
Yeah.
And it was Austin's brother saying how he was eating a sandwich and thinking of Austin and how hungry he must be. And the sandwich was really good. And he thinks about Austin with every bite that he takes, or something like
That's
that.
amazing.
And it was like, Austin obviously posted it, and then even better on like the comments was like, if I would have got this on the island, it would have been sandwich revenge number 3 coming real soon when I got home or whatever. I was like, that's hilarious. And I know they get more than one letter. It's not like that would have been the only one. And he would
Yeah.
have been like, well, this didn't really, like, it was funny. It's way funnier afterwards when I'm not on the island. If I would like someone to like pump me up, make me feel good, make me feel loved. But I thought that was really funny. And speaking of Austin and funny, the boys during this portion, they have a good old fashioned bro out, something new to
Yeah.
Drew, but which, no, it's not, Drew. We've heard you say earlier, you have 2 personalities, Drew and Basile, what,
Basile, yeah.
Basile, and one of those is like frat bro, like party guy in your fraternity at college. And like, you can't say that you have half an identity that's a party guy in your fraternity at college and say you've never broed out. It looked like you had flexed before, and whatever. You seem pretty comfortable with the pose. But they have a big old fashioned bro out. They paid, I don't know how much money, but a lot of money for
A lot
Kenny
of money.
Loggins, full
Yep.
blown Top Gun Kenny Loggins. So that's something I couldn't believe, and
It was
made it all the
amazing.
better. And yeah, they have a good old time. They fart, they burp, they talk
The
about
classics.
bacon. And then when they eventually get bored and Austin realizes, hey, I'm never going to get a chance outside of right now to just go fish, but like no game, actually enjoy being in Fiji. He has the comments about, like it's amazing that my backyard is this coral reef in this ocean. He catches some fish. They maybe cook it. We don't even see that part. I was very entertained. I was into it. How did you feel about the little bro out session?
It was fantastic. I'm gonna be on board anytime that you bring out Kenny Loggins. Um, it it was so good. And then on the On Fire podcast, they talked about how they had taken it down to like two choices. It was either going to be heavy metal or like cheesy 80s music. And I forget who made the suggestion, but someone was like, what about this song? And they were like, yeah, definitely. Because it was going to be heavy metal. Heavy metal had one out, and then it
That would have been
ended
horrible.
up being Kenny Loggins. Well, they probably would have used slightly different footage if it would have been like heavy metal.
Yeah,
but
but Sifu
wasn't there.
Yeah, Sifu's not there to hit the guitar or his.
So what's the point?
Whatever he does, it's not always air guitar, but it's air.
Yeah.
Something
machete, air machete.
Yeah, air machete. Yeah, so it wouldn't have felt right without Sifu.
No,
so
he would have been so bummed if he would have watched that scene at home and it would have been like heavy metal and he wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, would have completely never again thought of I didn't win $1 million. Would have been like I wasn't there for that moment. Me and my machete were not there for that. That would have been heartbreaking for him to watch. Well, I enjoyed it. I doubt I think they might have been not lying, but withholding part of the truth on the On Fire podcast, because there's a secondary conversation then when someone says, what about this Kenny Loggins song that is in one of the most successful movie franchises ever? I'm sure it doesn't come cheap. In CBS, you know, they're on a nice budget these days doing Fiji over and over and shorter, but they still are on a budget and they still have to talk about
they just blew it. Since they've gone all the seasons that they've been to Fiji, they've just broken even now because they've used this one song by Kenny Loggins. Worth it.
Yeah.
But
where the rest of the season, we're exclusively getting the opening credits, like tribal theme song, just in the background of everything the rest of the season. And there's going to be a little Chiron at the bottom that says, remember Kenny Loggins? Yeah, that was great.
And the winner gets $20 this season.
We actually took $100,000 out. You guys are going to love it though. When you see it on TV, it's the guys on the beach and Kenny, it cost a lot of money. So we had to reduce your prize money. Yeah, it'll be an all women final three. Be like, excuse me, did what? Yeah, that'd be great. Obviously that's not going to happen, but if it did, I would laugh. So yeah, and then the girls come back at dawn, and then eventually later that day they go to an immunity challenge. The scene that I referenced earlier, the scene that we didn't get to see, that they put out again, I don't know if it's through Dalton, but on Entertainment Weekly again. I keep messing up the name. Yeah, Entertainment Weekly. And then they usually let the cast member that is the narrator of the scene also like tweets it. That's how I always see them. So I saw Austin tweeted it, and it was Austin getting the tree mail, and they still get tree mail. We never see it anymore, but they still do.
Drew, I think was it last week where we saw it? Yeah, it was last week that we saw it for the first time this season.
But that was because it actively had like we needed an explanation for why they were picking teams. Unless there's something like that, or the auction one, it wasn't tree mail, but we saw them read the clue. They're still getting something like that every day of a challenge. We're just not seeing it all the ways. But they had gotten one that told them, and they all knew going in that it was going to be another. They didn't use the word endurance. They used whatever the like really specific proper term was, which I was really impressed by. I just called them all endurance challenges, sort of like hold your body, something or other. And so they knew going in, and they were all really worried about once they found that out, they were like, shit, like really another one, like Bruce is 2-0. And this is going to be tough. And so they go, and it is another endurance style challenge, one they've never done before. That was the other part of the little scene. They all hypothesized, and my mind went, once I saw it, even though I knew the end result, they thought the clue said something about like holding on above water or whatever. They all thought it was going to be the little triangle thing in the water where you stand on. And there was a little smile on Dee's face, like, got these toes, baby. Let's get these toes back in. But it's not the toes, it's the hands almost exclusively. They have to lay on these slanted 45-degree-ish boards and there's little handholds on the side. They hold themselves up with the hands. The first round or two, they get to use their feet as much as they want. Eventually, they have to remove their feet as
which was
well.
brutal.
And I liked this a lot. I'm just going to say the asshole in me just always trying to defend and claw back one little bit of pride for the challenge world. Survivor, the world of fair. I was listening to, I've finally gotten back into listening to Tyson, Pod Has Spoken, and he did point out, because he is the truth, he's the one that just cares so much about the like making all these things as fair as possible. And they pointed out clearly, I forget who he had on this week.
Christian Hubicki.
Yeah. That like this isn't fair. They didn't adjust these because the boards are all the same width. So the wider you are, the easier it is. And some of the girls, especially, are very slender. Emily's like a much wider grip on that than Bruce, who's got his arms a little more straight next to him. And then also that the handholds then, which they work more or less in, counter to each other. The handholds were the same size for everyone. And so, Bruce has really big hands, comparative to an Emily. So it balances out a little bit, but I just had to, because I'm meanie, and I just had to point out that they don't go all the way above and beyond, which they didn't need to. I don't actually think like this was some unfair challenge or something like that, but it was just a funny thing to point out. I liked it. Did you like it? And did you think that Bruce was going to win?
I liked it. I did think that Bruce was going to pull out a win because Austin didn't look like it. His stance didn't look comfortable. It didn't look like the quote unquote right stance, with me having no frame of reference for how you should do this.
Straight arm seems better than bent.
Yeah, because it looked like just the way that Austin was holding on, it looked like his shoulder blades were like coming together in the back, which is just uncomfortable when you do that for 2 seconds. So I can only imagine if you're holding up your entire body weight and you can't use your feet anymore and you're just like straight legged, that would just kill. So when they did that and I saw the two of them, and whether Bruce was just like holding it in or not, Bruce did not look phased by this challenge. So I absolutely thought that Bruce was going to catch another win.
Yeah, I definitely, Austin just didn't look confident before. And again, it was then after the fact, but in the little clip thing, as they all talk, like Austin was one of the main ones. I was like, oh dude, like Bruce might win again. Like we have to beat him. And so I thought he was going to get another one, which at this point would have been hilarious. I would have been all on board with, because I'm so befuddled by the fact that they're all so dead set on getting Bruce out when he's the only one who would get 0 votes at the end. And I thought he had made it far enough past the point of where now you're not going to get voted out because everyone wants to take you to the end if they can, but they just can't. They can't stomach him on the beach, I guess, that badly.
See, that point exactly is why you need to get him out, because if everybody else thinks that he's not catching any votes when you get to final tribal, that means that depending on who's trying to take him, he's taking up a spot that could be your seat. So you have to balance that out of, do I want to take Bruce to the end and sit next to him when he's outlasted all of these people that have tried to get him out and instead they've gone out as a result? Or do I want to get rid of Bruce? Because if I get rid of Bruce, that's one less person that can be taken to the end instead of me getting my spot.
I mean, yes, but I still just, I would lean, my strategy would lean on, if once it's down to 8 people, I'm really trying to focus as much on getting to the end as getting to the end with the right people. Whereas probably up until the round 9 or 8, kind of the halfway mark of people being eliminated, I'm strictly thinking about just like be here the next day and worry about doing something that would win you the game near the end. This would be the first time, and again is why I would say like Bruce survived these last couple, and I thought this would be the moment where it flips and it's like, well, you stuck around long enough, and so now I'm a little more worried. I'm less annoyed by you than I am worried about how I'm going to lose to any of the 4 people from Reba. And so that's a lot of people to have to get out that I can't take to the final. So like, I got to get to work on that. You're safe now, Bruce. But I see your point. Yes. That if you're thinking, you're kind of viewing, if everyone wants him at the final, then it does become like a bigger threat to take one of the 3 spots that you are trying to get. But thankfully for everyone, Bruce does not win immunity. Austin wins. Hooray, Austin. It's about time though, honestly. I did think like at some point, like Austin seems to be a very fit dude. His energy levels seem to be as good as anyone left. He's now gotten to, or he got to eat once finally.
Yeah.
Or no, he hasn't. He hasn't gotten to eat anything, right? He lost the last 2 because he was on the journey again.
Right.
He got to eat at the auction when everyone got something. He got to eat the eye and then something after the eye, but he got that nice big bite of eye. So that's definitely helping him. But he now is immune in this one. And because there's nowhere else to mention it, looking forward, he has 2 idols that have to be played by final 5, and there's 7 people left. So Austin's in the final 5 if he's
potentially
smart. Unless he, plays them for someone else, or unless Julie hasn't given it back, because Julie has one of them or did have one of them. But if he wanted to be, he does have 2 idols to his name.
Yep.
We assume, and there have to be played in the next 2 tribals, and therefore he, if he wanted to, could waltz right into final 5, or maybe win another challenge and use it then for someone else, which is becomes just he's all powerful basically at this point.
Yeah.
And so with that's the immunity challenge, and then we head to the final portion, the scramble and the tribal council. We'll mix these together. We usually separate these 2, but it's a pretty quick, we're only at the beach for a few minutes before we head to tribal, because a lot of the groundwork had kind of been laid up to the immunity challenge with the 2 challenges in this episode. And it really comes down to, as much as it probably the before, has a lot of sway in this moment, they don't have all of the sway, because it is 4 people. And if they think Bruce, they know Bruce still has his idol. If they think he has to play it, if they have to split votes, 4 people out of 8, when you need to split votes, isn't enough to guarantee yourself anything necessarily. And so it kind of is Emily's game to decide in this moment. And she decides, based on the fact that she just has zero faith, nor should she, that Katurah and Bruce could vote together, or even that necessarily that Jake won't just be like, turn around to Reba and be like, hey, guess what? Someone wants to get you out. Will you please save me again? She decides my only thing to do is actually to work with Reba. And my first big move of the game is going to be that I'm the one that gets Bruce out. And she more or less convinces Bruce of, hatches the plan of, let's tell Bruce that it's Julie and that we've got 4 of us on board, and that, if they're splitting votes, you don't need to play your idol even. She doesn't like say that, but that's her goal behind the scenes in confessional, is like, I want to convince Bruce he doesn't have to play his idol, and then we're going to get Bruce out. And ultimately that happens. That's exactly what happens. So do you agree with Emily's plan? We've kind of both alluded to our thoughts on like, should Bruce be the target here or not? But then Emily, execution of this plan, how much does this resonate with the jury in the end? All things Emily pulling the big move to get Bruce out.
Yeah, so a couple things. One that I absolutely have to mention is in between the challenges. So before they went to immunity challenge, she was talking to Jake, and like completely leveled with Jake, said like, look, these are the people that are coming after you. This is why they're coming after you. And she said like, it's to build that relationship. And she is emulating Caleb's game, because that's exactly what Caleb did with her in the very beginning. And she has now got to a point where she is using those same tactics to have conversations and further herself in the game. And I think that's amazing to see. Additionally, while I will go into more detail about where I think the move lands when we give out our awards. But as far as execution, it was beautiful. Like and I said this to Sarah on my way down the stairs. I actually stopped on the landing and yelled up to her, I was like, I'm going to say this on the podcast. I want to make sure that it sounds correct. And she was like, yeah, I agree. So I think that Emily being able to convince Bruce to not play his idol after he has been the target for several votes and has an idol in his pocket, and this is the first time that he's vulnerable, the fact that she can convince him to not play his idol is the same reason that I think that she can convince whoever is on the jury to award her $1 million. Mm-hmm. Like, this move right here is why she is as dangerous as she is. And I don't think anybody fully realizes that, because Katurah was the one who mentioned Mama J first, and then Emily echoed it. And like all of those different things, she's never necessarily been the driving force. She's either tossed a name up in question, or she's gone along, like she's agreed and then helped orchestrate it. So I think that this is her move, and there's a moment at Tribal when Bruce is voted out, and it focuses on Bruce, and she's slightly out of focus behind him, and she looks over to the jury and smiles. And to me, like, for in my head, I continued looking at the jury from the other camera that wasn't there, and all of them acknowledged that it was Emily's move.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that. That's my gut feeling. So it was the move that she needed to make. I still have issues with it, but it's the move that she needed to make.
Yeah, it's definitely, I fully agree. I think that is the number one thing to point out, that in the moment on watching, I couldn't get past the, you don't need to get Bruce out. Like it does,
Yeah.
it's not that impressive or whatever. And then slowly but surely I came to realize that, yeah, it's not that she got Bruce out. It's she
No.
got anyone out that was in the position he was in, that I've been the target for 3 straight weeks, if not longer. I've won immunity twice in a row. Everyone knows I have this idol. I know that I have to play it. And I was convinced to not. And
Yeah.
I do, there's very perceptive of you. I saw the same thing. And I think they also just did camera work to kind of make it like
Yeah.
the edit wanted us to know this was Emily's driving force behind this move. 4 people do vote, but it was Emily behind actually the vote for him. And yeah, that she wants the jury to know that, because who the hell knows what Bruce's interactions with the jury when he goes back are, or if he like totally knows who to give credit to
Right.
for him being there, other than just like, I should have played my idol, like that was so dumb of me type of thing. So yeah, brilliant on her part. Again, if it were just talking the person they're getting out, I don't know that they got out a threat to win the game. But as far as her being able to tell them, I got the guy who wanted, especially the Bruce part of it is being able to add in, I got Bruce of all people to do what I wanted him to do. The guy
Yeah.
who only wanted to order us around, who never wanted to listen to anyone else's plan. I convinced him that my plan was going to work, and he felt so safe that he didn't play his idol, and then he went home. So yeah, definitely a huge move on her resume. Definitely puts her, in my mind, in pole position to win right now if the current
Mm-hmm.
jury had to pick from the current players left, because I
Yeah.
think the current jury until the Reba 4 really need to be like, I need to be in the final 3 as the only Reba. I need some people over there that are going to vote for me at
Yeah.
the end of this, not just based on game, but like based on liking me. And the current jury is definitely all like, I'm not that interested in voting for the Reba people, probably. And now we have our Queen Emily to vote for. So fantastic move from her. The other quick thing to discuss, the final thing here, is obviously the Reba 4 then stay really, really strong. They are, they're still dominating the game. And now they've gotten all the way to the point they're 4 out of 7. So they actually truly do have a stranglehold, but it does turn into, okay, so do you want to get someone out next time? Are you going to go to 4? Are you going to go to 5?
Yeah.
Who's going to split up with who when you inevitably split up? And there's 2 parts with that. One, I'll just put my prediction out first. Drew and Julie. Some people read the scene. I think it was another thing Tyson said on his podcast, read the scene of Julie and Drew on the beach talking and, getting a little emotional, being like, I don't like Julie talking about how she didn't like voting people out. That felt, like she was the
Mm-hmm.
mother figure. And Drew, one of them says to the other, Drew asks, we're going to be all right no matter what, right? And she says like,
Yeah.
yes. And Tyson like had read that as, Drew just gave Julie the permission to vote him out, which it was like they were giving each other permission of like, obviously the 4 of us we can't all win.
Yeah.
But I read it slightly different. They were kind of each telling each other, we'll support each other when one of us says to the other, so D and Austin, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously me and you have to get D and Austin, because I see the split being D and Austin on one side and Drew and Julie on the other side. And the whole Momma Julie thing was definitely a storyline of this episode. And even Jeff went as far as to open the tribal council with Julie. Let's talk about how you've been upset over having to vote people out and everyone calls you mama, and that role that you've taken on, which is a really difficult role to have on the beach, because the obvious, if everyone looks to you as like their mom, that's someone that you trust and that you would vote for in the end. So that also makes you a threat, and it also makes your life harder because your relationships have that extra little layer of meaning to them. So any thoughts heading out of this episode into the next one on where, if you see the Reba 4 finally breaking, and where those breaks maybe are going to happen?
I thought I took that conversation as basically each of them getting permission from the other to inevitably dissolve the Reba 4 when they need to. Not necessarily Drew saying, you can take my spot. I totally took it as, no matter what happens in this game, the four of us are still the four of us after the game. And that's as far as I took it. I didn't necessarily think that either was giving permission to take them out, to get the other further. Just simply the fact that whatever happens in game won't impact what we've all built when we get home. As far as the Reba 4, I totally see Dee and Austin in the power positions in that alliance. I think that Drew's best move is to get to Emily before Austin does, and possibly rope in Mama J. I don't know how that looks, but if Drew swings over, and he doesn't necessarily have a reason to right now, but if Drew swings over and votes with Katurah, Jake, and Emily, and gets out a D, because Austin will play an idol for himself, I don't know that he'll see the shot coming for D. Or if Austin has an idol, he plays it for himself. Julie has his idol, it's supposed to go to D, and she just holds on to it and lets the shot go. Then that's also a big move too. There are ways forward. I think that the three that are left, Katurah, Jake, and Emily, could hold some sway, because really, you've got Emily, who's a really good talker, and you've got two lawyers. So they potentially have the ability to give somebody enough of a case that they can switch over. It'll be interesting to see what the next couple of weeks or the next couple of episodes end up being, because very much so the Reba 4, I think the Reba 4 will cannibalize before the other three get picked off, because they know that they either need people on the jury or they need to make sure that they're the ones with the best resume that are sitting at Final Tribal.
Yeah, for sure. And this is we've been teased with like the next week on clips, trying to tease for, I think, the last 3 episodes, that like the Reba crew is talking about each other. But this one, the entire next week on was the Reba crew talking about each other. And it was like, okay, like this isn't a fake out anymore. They don't have anything else to show us in the next week on. And it would make sense that we've kind of hit the point of, it has to happen we've reached the point where it literally has to. There isn't anything else to happen that could happen now. It just has to be that. Austin is just sitting in such an unbelievable position. Him and Dee, who seem very close. They, nothing romantic that we've been told, except from Kendra, who said she wants them to get married. Although they do, with every passing episode, it seems to be, I don't know, there seems to be the smallest, maybe it's just me wanting there to be another relationship on the show. There does seem to be the smallest spark of like chemistry beyond friendship. And in the next week on, there was also them like kind of hugging and, being a little definitely edited in a way that, whether it is or isn't, wants me to see it and be like, ooh, are they going to kiss? Like something like that, but those two are, Julie and Drew are going to, the moment they decide we have to do this, are going to be like, well, those two are in the better position of the four of us. And I think Emily sees the game clear enough that she's also gonna be like, yeah, they're in the better position than the two of you. And the target will be them. And it's whether would Austin, if he has, I'm going under the assumption Julie gave the idol back, or Austin asked for it back, or if he didn't, could say, give me my idol back. And Julie kind of, I don't think is the type of person to be like, nope, stay in my bag or whatever. Like, I don't think she can do that. So I'm going, he has both them. Would he play them both? the next week and be like, I'll save me and D both, and then be idle-less for the one tribal council where I could have had one and get to final 5, where it is just simply winning an immunity challenge to get to the end. And I'm the one standing around looking around. Austin also, now that Bruce is gone, respectfully to everyone else, has to be thinking I can win all of the immunity challenges now. I've proven just as good or better at everything that has been given to us, puzzles included and everything, as anyone standing here. So that'll be an interesting moment, but we will see. Yeah, and so with that, we will that's this episode. That's 2 episodes. Look at us flying through 2 episodes here. And now we will hand out some hardware. For the awards, we'll mostly keep it to episode 10, but as we discussed before we started recording, if there's something, that quote or moment that you just have to say from episode 9, feel free. So let's start, as we always do, with the quote of the episode. Tony, do you got any standout quotes? I'm thinking there's one that I know that we have not said, although we have mentioned via text, that I'm guessing is going to come up at some point here in this awards. What quotes do you have for me?
I've got a couple. Okay. So I've got Katurah's like very paused and very demure. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this glass of wine. And it was just such a nice moment, and it played so well into the whole scene of just like, yeah, I need a drink. Also, I have to go with Jake when Jeff was talking about like being at the carnival and everything like that. He's like, what kind of carnival have you seen this at?
Yeah, also, thank goodness someone said it, because it made it was like, Jeff, you have 45 seasons, you talk all this, you've got to have some flubs here and there. I don't know what the hell you're trying to describe. I've been to small town, like real carny stuff. I've been to county fairs, I've been to state fairs, all in the Midwest. Like, the scones don't exist, first of all, at them.
Yeah,
that's way too fancy for.
That's what I wrote down too.
For anything else, it's a euro and maybe funnel cake at best, you know. And yeah, nothing about that made sense. So thank you, Jake, as always, for always happy to open his mouth and say something, and almost always entertaining. Thank you, Jake, for calling that out.
Including, dude, I'm on the bottom. How am I a mobster? And. I also wrote down Bruce's I don't really give 2 poops about it, because it just made me laugh because I'm immature and he said poop, but also because I'm so used to people just saying I don't give a shit, that to hear somebody say I don't give 2 poops, it just flowed well. It was nice.
There's nothing I love more than the dad who doesn't curse, but like does say plenty of phrases that then he has to replace, and so gives the PG version of the I don't give 2 poops about that. Yeah, I always get a laugh out of that as well.
I had one from last week as well.
Yeah,
and then
please.
I have one from last week, and then I have my winner. Okay. So the one from last week was, I don't even want to say I was left in the dark. I wasn't even left in the same dimension, which was another Jake gem. And the one that was the most pointed, and I love, because it continues the trend of Jake saying what everybody's thinking when you think about how the game should be played. When he just looks at Drew and he goes, wait, so you don't care if I catch a stray bullet, but I have to care if you do?
Yes, that's very good. And that's during the moment I knew would come up here that we did not discuss, of Jake and Drew having their earlier in the episode during the bro out, they, talk some game and are like, man, we could actually Drew, in Drew's mind, he's like, Jake, we could pull you in. You could be a part of what we got going on over here. Like, that's fine. But it's going to be a one-way street. Like, you can be a part of it. And then later on, Jake throws Drew's name out. Emily tells Drew Julie immediately.
Julie tells Drew,
not a great move by Jake, of just like, you kind of should have known. But again, love that Julie, just conversation over. You just threw out one of my allies. I'm not even going to respond. I'm going to walk away, find said ally, tell him, and then he's going to come back and talk to you. unbelievable. And then obviously the conversation they have and the goon talk and
Yeah.
what do you think this is, the departed or something. Everything about that. Drew's just the freaking best. Which, speaking of Drew, I have a lot of Drew content here for the awards as always, because him and Jake are just neck and neck right now in
Yeah.
the confessional king of the season. It's coming down to the two of them for sure. The only quote from episode 9, another Jake, opens the episode with, "Hi, I'm Jake. I'm still on Survivor." And it's just like, this guy's just the best. He's so fun every time.
Did you see
Yeah.
the correlation? Like, did you see the tweet of his and then Kelly Wentworth's from I think it was
No.
from Game Changers. So her opener was basically like, "Hi, I'm Kelly. Still on Survivor. I just canceled. I just sent Andrew Savage home after canceling out however many votes." So a lot of people have put the two together,
Oh, nice. Love
and
that.
it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our conversation is done. All right, mobster, dude, how am I on the mobster? I'm on the bottom. There's a departed reference that follows it, that whole thing. Also Drew near the end of the episode, not even a full quote, one word. He finds a way. Jeff asks him a question. He finds a way to just weave in one word answer, indubitably.
Indubitably.
Yeah, which I couldn't even spell. I'm embarrassed to say how I wrote this in my notes to be able to say that, because I don't know how to say that word. I literally don't know how to speak that word or to write it. But it was amazing. It wasn't like a full quote, but Drew had, maybe this was in episode 9. Let me scroll back to the bottom here. Yeah, it was in episode 9 at Tribal Council. Drew's just money at Tribal Councils. He threw in a Democles,
Damocles.
some Greek god, I imagine, is who he's referring to.
Yeah,
Story.
the sword of Damocles.
Yeah, and Jeff literally is so impressed that he like puts his one leg over the other and leans back, and it's just like, okay, Drew, regale us with this ancient history and this story. This is impressive. So Drew, as always, is the best. But I the dimension line that you referenced from Jake, I think, was the best of these 2 episodes, and I would be my winner pick.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so we'll give it to him one way or the other. As for moments, best moment, again, back to episode 9 really quickly. There was one, no, it was the reference and Jeff being so into it, and then again, I already said earlier in the episode, Kendra, no words on her way out, just loved that. Thank you for doing that, because that's the appropriate reaction. That's how I would react, and so therefore that's the appropriate reaction, which is how that works. Bruce telling Katurah the lie, and then the moment of confusion where he says, "How is my acting?" And she's like, "Wait, what's going on?" And just the confusion, and then the revelation of what he's doing in that moment, and just the fact that we're in episode 10 and still getting to watch those two interact is just priceless. Then obviously the bro out montage, all of that is fantastic. The Jake and Drew thing is fantastic. The Jake breaking down on the beach, and first Katurah and then Bruce having a nice moment with them really felt good for Bruce. Bruce has been so desperate to have a dad moment, and for someone out there, as much as he wants to be fun
or
uncle,
a good edit.
Yeah, he finally got to have this younger guy needs a dad right now. Like, he needs a dad to tell him he's okay, and he's good and he's talented, and pump him up a little, and he gets to have that moment with him, and it's really good. I was actually like, damn, that would have made me feel better, Bruce. So totally. Thank you. That, and then Emily's face after they get Bruce out, I really liked that as well. And the final one, I had forgotten. Speaking of earlier, we said, I forgot Julie's backstory. I forgot Katurah was lying and no one knows she's a lawyer. But when Jake, at the beginning of his breakdown with everyone in camp, I don't think it's Katurah, I think it's someone else, says when he's I just feel like I suck. I feel like I'm dumb. And they're like, dude, you're an awesome lawyer, a badass lawyer. What? And Katurah's like, yeah, you're a lawyer. Come on, dude. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot that Katurah's a lawyer and no one knows that Katurah's a lawyer. So I liked that moment too.
So I have to give props to Bruce at the top of episode 9. after Kelly got voted out, and he had that really introspective moment about how like he's been told that Kelly felt like she was under his thumb and wasn't able to make any moves and was tethered to him, and he said that like he felt that he treated her no different than he would treat his wife or his daughters, and he wanted to go back home and ask them about that and see if that's really how he's perceived so that he can kind of move forward from that. I thought that was really cool because so much of this season has just been like the edit of Bruce being the overbearing dad.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to get that moment and then couple that moment with Jake at the like towards the end of this episode. Um, it doesn't like it's obviously not the most entertaining moment as far as like hijinks ensue, but it was nice to see that, and nice to get those moments from Bruce, especially now that like obviously we won't get more until the jury. So that one, Emily winning reward was awesome because she is the only remaining Lulu, which really, if you were to look at the Lulu tribe at the beginning of the show, Emily would not be the one that you would anticipate still being here at Final 7 and winning individual immunity. Um, yeah, and like
for sure.
the wine confessional was great.
Yeah, that should have been mentioned. That's, as we said earlier, iconic meme forever. That's obviously a worthwhile nominee.
Yep, and then I mean just the Jake and Drew argument, they were like petulant children just like bickering with one another. Like it was almost as if Mama J had sent them to their room because Jake had told her something that Drew had done, so they both got punished because Jake told on him but Drew did it. So they were just like trudging their way back up the stairs to their bedrooms, just being like, "Why'd you tell her? Why'd you tell her that I did it? You did it." And just the back and forth was a thing of beauty.
That's my winner. It's
Yeah.
just too much fun.
Oh yeah.
And I just also appreciate that should happen more often. That
Yeah,
two
well, yeah,
people are like, dude, what the hell? Like
yeah,
what's going on? You're all out there like starved or whatever. You got to be cranky. At some point, someone should be cranky, and it doesn't make sense that they're not. And we finally got two people who are just like, like what are you doing saying my name? What are you doing saying my name? And just kind of like throwing their hands up and like, this is annoying.
It's like Owen and James from like from 43, where they just finally got to a point where Owen was just pissed off at him to the point where he just started yelling at him. And I was like,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it should happen more often. I know it's a game and you're supposed to keep your composure, but like again, crankiness would have to set in at some point.
And totally.
People should yell at people more often than they do, which is maybe one of the miracles of how they cast this show, that they can avoid that. Well, yeah, we'll give that the best moment. Best or worst gameplay, or one of both. Let's keep it just to episode 10 for this one. The worst gameplay I think is obvious. Bruce should play his idol. I don't think it was convincing enough, and I think he should have went with, I've won 2 immunities. I got second in the other one. I got second in the reward challenge. Just get to the next day and keep, hope another idol comes into play. Hope I get late enough that maybe the Reba will break up, or just I win another immunity. But like, I am purely in just survive mode, and I have an idol, and I should obviously play it no matter what I've been convinced of. And yeah, so I think that's the obvious worst gameplay. Best gameplay is kind of hard. I think in the end, I can't believe if at the beginning of this podcast, I did not have it down, but we kind of talked ourselves into like, Emily, it's not about Bruce being out. It's about how the convincing of the person with the idol to leave and how impressive that is. I probably have to give that the best gameplay. And and then again, a kind of dual secondary. Bruce, the lie itself was really great. The execution of it was horrific. Don't tell Katurah. Don't tell Katurah the way you did. And then the other worst is Katurah. I still didn't totally agree with how that she then, I know we talked ourselves into that a little bit more too by the end of it, but I still didn't totally agree with her just dead set on like, this is the only thing that matters to me. It is kind of a little bit blinding, again, at least from the edit that we're seeing. So those would be my nominees, but I think Bruce holding an idol and walking out is obviously always horrible gameplay, and Emily getting to say she got someone to hold an idol and leave the game is probably the best gameplay.
Yeah, That's fair. So best move, honorable mention to Katurah pointing out how Mama J is perceived in this game, because I don't think a lot of people are picking up on it. And to be able to pick that up and really hammer it home is a killer move. I gave both the best move and the worst move to Emily's one move of getting Bruce out. Best move because he and Katurah were never going to work together effectively. So if she wanted to go further with one of them, it makes more sense that she'd go further with Katurah because they have a relationship. So it makes sense to cut the person that you're not going to be able to work with. She got the idol out of the game. She got the immunity winner out of the game. And she also got somebody out who may have been perceived as a no vote finalist that could have taken her spot, with like an Owen, or not like Owen, with Drew and Austin, because they could either take her with their alliance of three, or Bruce is going to be easier to take than Emily. But then, as far as worst move, she took out that fourth member that they needed to take on the Reba for head to head. So that's where it's the worst move. Obviously, the absolute worst move is Bruce walking out with an idol in his pocket. Over the course of the show, I did like Bruce more and more. I think that he got a bum edit, but I think that to have a bum edit, you also have to do all the things that were in the edit for it to be aired. So I realize there's a lot more to Bruce, and we're only looking at the edit that we're given, and I'm sure that he's like a totally chill dude, because everybody from both the season that he was on briefly and this season seemed to jive with him. So sucks to see him go, but he had one hell of a game considering he played the first time for 12 hours.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you. I'm definitely, he got a shitty edit, but that's just how it has to happen. They only have so much time. They have to tell kind of one specific story about each person, and you gave them the opportunity to have it be the Bruce versus Katurah story and Bruce annoy people story, and so that's what it was. But I do think he's a stand-up guy and a fun dude.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not swayed otherwise because of that edit. MVP of the episode, I'd probably say Emily again.
I would say Emily again.
Jake, Jake's like just constantly like the runner up in the MVP to me. Is like he's just constantly one of the best parts of every episode, but not like the central character.
Yeah, and he gets stuff done.
Kind of goes in line with like how the votes and everything go. Of like you're around, because everyone's always like, well, if not this, then this. But
yeah.
So sorry to say, if not Emily, then Jake. But I think I'm still giving it to Emily.
Yeah, Emily wins MVP. Jake is honorable mention, because you know what? People may think that he's not perceived as being a great player, but there's a reason that they've been trying to get him out this whole time as well. Like, he is a threat in a different way than some of the other people there, and I think that he's still got a chance, but he is my honorable mention this week.
For sure. And with that, we head to find out where Jake falls on the power rankings as we close out with that and the predictions. So power rankings, we've only got 7 left. We have been doing everyone at this point. I will let you go first. I don't actually have my ones from when 2 weeks ago even up. So my list will be brand new, at least as far as that's considered, although I bet it ends up looking kind of the same. What's who do you got sitting at the top in pole position for the win right now?
You're not going to be super happy with me by the end of this list, but I've got Emily, then D, Austin, then Jake, Katurah, then Drew, then Momma J.
I mostly agree with you. I have Katurah last because I think she's the only one I don't really see a path to victory for. I don't know how she can get into a position to be the driving force behind. Like, she can definitely be a part of the votes to get a D and Austin, whoever out, but I don't know how. There's not really a way for her to be the leader of one of those moves, and not then a group of 3 at the end that she could sit with, where I think that she could convincingly win the argument, outside of maybe if everyone's just like, we like you, and for some reason we've decided to hate whatever Reba member or Emily or something you're sitting there with. So I have her at the bottom just because I think she's the only one that I can't even see the smallest chance of winning. But then I have Austin first and Emily second, but it's really just a tie. I think Austin has at least entered the chat for me for weeks I think at least 3 or 4 weeks, even the week or two before Kelly went home, I was pretty convinced that like Emily's going to win. And I still feel very convinced Emily is going to win. But I just think Austin has so much power right now and is kind of, again, as we said earlier, if he wants to be guaranteed in the final five. And
Yeah.
then the odds on favorite, not overwhelming, but like the favorite of those five to win the last immunity or fire or whatever. So he's kind of in the top tier now with Emily to me. D, Drew, Julie. I actually honestly put Jake above them because I think he's going to get to the final three now. He's survived far enough to now,
Yeah.
whether he gets to the final three as an Owen of like a true, his position doesn't change from what it's been the last 3 weeks. And it's just like, you're here because you're just here versus I think he has a chance to not be an Owen and to have a shot at final three based on what he could do in the next few episodes. But I kind of just look at Austin as going to be the winner in my mind of the Reba four, which means the other three move down for me. So I've got Emily and Austin at the top, Jake third, the three Reba members, and then Katurah. And I could still see everyone except for Katurah winning, but it's like 1% for the others, and it's 50-50 Emily and Austin for me.
I get that.
But we will see.
Yeah. My only qualm is that I think that Austin has a bit of a blind spot for D, because they are so close. Not necessarily that he doesn't see her as a threat. He absolutely does. I just don't know. It's not that I think he's going to like misplay idols or anything like that, but I don't know if he's going to miss his shot to take D out.
It's just going to be a who between when Drew and Austin, there's going to be a scene of Drew and Austin sitting on the beach and Drew saying, we have to get D, and Austin saying, let's do Momma J first. And them being like, we want to be together. We want it to be the two of us, but we each attached ourselves to one of the two women in this. And so who wins, but who has the sway of those two? And I would guess that Austin gets to say, that's fair. I love you. I'm not going to turn on you, but I'm the one with the two idols. Yeah. So tiebreaker, we're voting for Momma J first. And I get to keep both of my besties longer. So yeah. But I think that conversation is 100%. That's predictions, right into predictions. Yeah. Number one prediction in the next 2 episodes, we are going to see Austin and Drew have a one-on-one discussion sitting on the beach of which of the two women are we going for. And I would think we maybe see the inverse of that too, except Julie and D, we've heard whisper each other's names. We've at least got a small inclination that they're like a little more thinking about this is going to happen at some point. And so I'm not confident that we'll see that conversation happen, but I am that Drew and Austin are going to have a one-on-one. What other predictions, or do you have any predictions for next week? What kind of challenge do you want to see next? Who goes home? Anything of that variety?
I think that we're within the next episode or two, we're going to see like a Reba implosion. Whether that only means one person gets out and the other three stay in and work their way towards final five, I'm not sure. I can also see a conversation between Emily, Jake, and Katurah basically being like, who do we ask? Because you only get one shot. And if you don't approach the right person out of the Reba 4, then they just go after them and pick them all off. But I don't know who the right person is. I don't know if it's Drew, because Drew can obviously see that Austin and D are in that power position, or if it's Momma J, because she knows that against the three of them, she's going to have a harder battle against the other three Reba. And she's the one that's willing to potentially make moves a bit more. Because she's been forced to make emotional moves and vote out people that she's close to. I think she's the one that's going to have an easier time voting out yet again somebody that she's close to. So as much as I think Drew would be a better fit in that 4, I think Momma J might be the better choice to approach about being a 4 and taking out the other Reba.
I would bet that who of the four do those three approach? It's not going to be Drew, because I think Jake and Drew
Yeah,
it's not going to
I
like
forgot about that.
it's not probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Although it's not like their blow up was big enough they couldn't put that behind them. I don't think it's Julie though, because I don't think they could trust that Julie can lie well enough to the other three.
Or that she won't
If I
immediately go to
get it,
D.
wouldn't immediately go to, or even if she truly wanted to,
Yeah.
would be able to do it without giving it away, of
Yeah.
like through the fact that she would, not be comfortable lying to these people. And so if I'm those three, I'm going to D. It's probably going to backfire. She's probably going to tell Austin right away, but I'm probably honestly going to D or Austin. One, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to Austin. Maybe I'm like, hey, Austin, it's fine. You got those idols. That's cool. In my mind, if I'm Emily, maybe I'm like,
Yeah.
Austin has idols. I can't do anything about him until final five anyway. So
right.
If I've got to take a shot at one of these people, convincing one of these people, probably the one that I can't ultimately like take down anyways, might as well, maybe that puts him in the pole position to be approached of the three of us are willing, like,
True.
it's not that hard of a conversation for them to have. If
No.
one of those three goes to Austin or any of them and says, hey, if it's Emily and she's like, hey, me, Katurah, and Jake, we all have the exact same feeling. We don't really want to go to final tribal with two of you. We don't want all of you four to, win, whatever. We're all voting together one way or the other.
Yeah.
Assuming that you also realize you have to vote for one of your friends at some point. We just want you to know that the three of us are voting together. You're the first person we've come to say we will give you our 3 votes where you want us to place them and let you pick. But that's what we're doing. We're in lockstep over here. You let us know. And whether you go and tell all of them or not, we're still all 3 voting for one of the 4 of you. And one of you will crack, basically. Like if you take that real strong position of like, one of you is going to crack. If you 4 want to vote one of us out, great. Continue on with your little group of 4. I don't think that's the right move. And the 3 of us aren't, can they actually turn it? Can Jake actually do the mobster thing? He was accused of being a mobster before. Can he actually do the mobster of like, go ahead, vote us out. We're the 3 of us are voting for one of you, no matter what, together. And you won't know which one unless one of you tells us, and one of you's going to tell us. Like, so come on, Jake, make the next episode The Departed. That's my wish. Jake, go to Drew and say, you know what? This is The Departed, brother. Do you want to backstab all of your best friends with me? Doesn't that sound great?
That honestly, like, that makes the most sense. Their best move is to say, we are not 3 separate votes. We are a single vote.
Yeah.
Like, we are a united 3
Our
votes.
3 votes go on the same person, no matter what. Yep. That's just a guarantee. You guys have run the game. We're in, because it also, it would be hard to spin after that, but like, you can also pitch like, Austin, you get the credit then too. We're saying we're all voting, we're forcing your hand, but like, you would be the one that then steps over with us and gets to then say, in theory, at a final tribal, when the strong 4 that ran the game broke up, I was the one that did it. I called the shot. I was the one that got the other person out. So that is like it's a tempting offer, and I'm guessing one of the 4 is going to take it. Either offer it themselves or take it. Yeah, somehow, some way.
You don't even have to go talk to everyone individually. The 3 of, like, you can just wake up one morning and say, look, we're going to make this easy on the 4 of you. The 3 of us are voting together. The 4 of you have to decide which one of you is telling us a name to put down.
Yeah.
Because because it's one thing to go to everybody individually, but if you put that on Front Street, like, and just say, the 4 of you get to decide who comes to us first and gives us a name as to who we're voting out.
Yeah, that's, I really hope the 3 of them can actually do some version of this, because it's going to be really annoying if they, even if it ends up being a Reba person, if it's all, basically 7 individuals. I want to see those 3 pull a little bit of power back. We'll see if, I don't know, now that Bruce isn't there, I think Jake and Emily and Katurah could trust each other for one single vote and could hold a firm stance for one vote at least. But I don't know. They've all shown to be a little squirrely in the past. So we will see next week, and we will be back next week for sure, sometime between Friday and Monday. We'll do our best to get it a little earlier next week. We've now hit Monday for the second time. So Saturday and Sunday now in the last place as far as days. Friday still holding strong, I believe, with 3.
Yes.
Monday catching up now with 2. So we shall see. But we will be back. And until then, yeah, use the links below. Hit us up, either of us, on Instagram if you want to chat Survivor, challenge, anything related to those topics, or otherwise even, you know, I'll probably respond to just about anything, more
Pretty
or
much,
less.
yeah.
And yeah, thanks to also big shout out to, especially if you're still listening to this, or you're probably then one of the people that shared, you know, Spotify Wrapped was, you know, amazing. I said in the last challenge episode I did how amazing it was hearing from everyone, and I've started to get some of the folks that, you know, in the top 10, top 5, top podcast spot, letting me know who exactly you were. So if that is you and you haven't, feel free to DM me. A few people that have DM'd me about specifically, this podcast moved into your Spotify Wrapped because of the Survivor podcast now here with the 2 of us. Big shout out to you. That is amazing.
That's awesome.
Here, glad that folks are liking it. And thank you to you, Tony, for being here so that I can say that I don't just talk by myself every week for every single podcast. I only do that half the time now.
My pleasure.
All right. We'll talk to everyone next week. Links below. Hit the follow, DM us, and we'll chat next time.
Have a good one.